Everything come up to speed for just a second and invite all of Broncos country into the chat. And away we go. Broncos country, good evening. Here we go, Tom. In approximately 24 hours, the Denver Broncos will have entered the NFL draft. Will Sean Payton draft a first-round quarterback? We're fixing to find out. Guys, he is Thomas Hall. I am Luke Patterson. This is the final MHI before the NFL draft. Thomas, how we feeling?
Oh, like I said, I feel less connected to the draft this year than I ever have. But I do feel like this is one of the most pivotal drafts that the Broncos have had to, come away with something good to turn their fortune around in that I've seen in a long time. This is it. If they want to turn it around, they've got to hit on this draft. So it's one of those things where I wish I was more invested in it because I want to be, because it's so pivotal, but I just haven't had the time with all the moving and all of that. So
here's where I'm at, man. I'm excited. I'm nervous. I'm scared to death. All that mock draft fatigue, it's done. I'm not even looking at mock drafts anymore, Tom. I mean, we're at the eve of the NFL draft. 24 hours from right now, we're going to have a better idea maybe about what the Denver Broncos have chosen to do. Are they in talks to move up? Are they in talks to move back? Are they going to get a quarterback? Are they going to go best player overall? I mean, all of these conversations we've been having for the entire offseason. Well, the first domino is going to fall tomorrow night in the first round as the 2024 NFL draft kicks off. And stay tuned to Mile High Huddle for all of our NFL draft coverage. Papa Bear coming in fast and furious, getting ready to call his shot. Thank you very much for kicking us off here, Dave. Good evening, Broncos country. Luke, Tom, Dylan, and Deacon Scott. Hashtag Brock Bowers, JJ McCarthy, or Bo Nix. Give me some Spencer Rattler, Buckham, MHH for life, and Denver Broncos for life. David, I like it because you're giving us options here, man.
Yeah.
He likes Brock Bowers. That's a name that we've seen potentially connected to the Denver Broncos. Why? Because the Denver Broncos can't seem to find a tight end since Julius Thomas.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean, it's a need, obviously, because they need somebody that can play at that position, who can create mismatches, who actually can, stretch a defense. I mean, we've been watching injuries. We've been watching these, not so athletic tight ends out there. So I can understand it. For me, I don't know. If the Broncos had the luxury of drafting Bowers, I would take him in a heartbeat. But there's so many needs on this roster. I think get an interior pass rusher or an edge rusher, somebody, if you're not getting a quarterback. That's where I'm at, just because I don't think that he moves the needle so much that they're going to, by drafting him in the first round, they're going to be so much better.
Listen, the conversation's about quarterbacks, so Papa Bear's right to throw some out there. I mean, right now we're hearing a lot about JJ McCarthy. You're hearing a lot about Bo Nix. You can read about Bo Nix's latest news and rumors surrounding the Denver Broncos and Bo Nix over at milehighhuddle.com. Chad's got an article up right now. It's tough, man. It's the season of lies. We're in the final 24 hours of some of those lies, at least in the first round. But the draft, is we sometimes forget when we get so excited for that first round. It's a 3-day process and then some, right? When you get through the first through the 7 rounds, then you're talking undrafted free agents. There's been NFL history there, specifically for the Denver Broncos. We're going to get into that. Favorite draft day picks, worst draft day nightmares, maybe some draft superstition. I want to hear from you, Broncos country. We have got a loaded show. Michael Ronquillo coming in hot, fast, and furious. Thank you, Mike. Good evening, Luke and Thomas on the Mile High Insiders, and go Broncos. Michael, I know you're ready. I know we're ready to see what those Cardinals are going to do down there, bud, in Arizona. Tom, what do you think? Sean Payton working the phones, calling his good buddies there in Arizona?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he wants to, like that is his MO. He wants to move up. It feels like it's too lucrative for the Broncos. Like they're not going to get a deal done. That's the way it feels to me. Now, I've been wrong plenty of times, so who knows? But it's just this feeling that I have that they just can't put a package together that entices someone so they're basically going to be at 12, or they're going to end up moving back, which is uncharted territory for Sean Payton in the first round.
By uncharted, you mean it's never happened in
That's
the first
right.
round. I'll go ahead and say it for you, Tom. Our good friend Kathy Lund coming in here with the $2 super. What's up, Kathy? T-minus 24 hours. Let's go. And Kathy made me laugh the other day, man. I was under the weather on Monday. I go to bed for a few hours. I wake up. I forget about the uniforms, right? So never mind waking up to new threads that we finally know what's happening with the Broncos uniforms now. But suddenly, the Broncos have a new quarterback in town, and Kathy's asking me, are you kidding me with Zach Wilson, Tom? I mean, what was your reaction? We've kicked around the idea. You and we didn't really want it, but I got to tell you, I'm a little curious now that he's here. They got him for next to nothing, swapping late round picks, and they're going to pick up half of his salary. I mean, okay, this shouldn't mean that the Broncos are out of a first-round quarterback.
No, it absolutely should. It's weird. Like, I feel like it's been so long since the Broncos have won anything that people are delusional, right? Like, I'm supposed to be happy that we traded for Zach Wilson. Like, what?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I mean,
you're not happy, Tom? You're not excited? You're not going to keep
I looked at the, the analytics I did for adjusting for era, and his 3 seasons are between Ryan Leaf and Tim Couch. That's pretty bad. And I really can't get excited about that. I don't care how much they paid for him, right? Like, like I said on Twitter, you can you can buy a cheap turd, but still a turd, right? Like, I mean, to me, it's like, why? Because and seriously, all joking aside, yes, he has potential. But the problem is, if they really go after a young rookie quarterback and they bring him in, what purpose does he serve? They should go out and find themselves a mentor type leader of a quarterback to have as his backup, not Zach Wilson, not Jarrett Stidham. So to me, it made no sense. I get it. There's potential, and who knows what could happen. Well, he should have shown something by now if that potential was going to be realized. I've looked at a lot of quarterbacks that have been pretty poor in the first couple seasons and went on to be great. They usually showed something by now. Once in a while, they don't. So I'm skeptical of the move, but it better not change their draft strategy at all.
What's ironic about it is on the same day that Zach Wilson hits the Denver Broncos, the new uniforms come out, right? Yeah. So all those Russell Wilson jerseys, what if Zach just keeps number 3? Then everybody can keep that Wilson jersey, right? And everything's fine and life is good here in Broncos country. It's odd. It's an odd move. It makes me wonder why now. I thought maybe during the draft or after the draft we'd see him moved. I don't think there was another suitor. I think Sean is probably tired of thinking about it. And it's like, all right, we're doing it. Let's do it. It's bad news for Ben DiNucci. Jarrett Stidham, I mean, okay, Sean prefers Jarrett Stidham, as do I right now, over Zach Wilson. And that's not me being complimentary of Jarrett Stidham, okay? It's just, it's going to be interesting, man. I think ultimately you've got to see a rookie first-round quarterback, Jarrett Stidham, Zach Wilson as camp fodder. I don't know. Phil McLaughlin weighing in. Good evening, Luke, Thomas, and Deacon Scott. Really great to have our quarterback now and not have to draft one. Will be great to get rid of that number 3 jersey. Just kidding. Buck 'em. MHH for life and Denver Broncos for life. No, that's just it, Phil. I mean, what does the future hold for Zach Wilson and the Denver Broncos? I don't know. We can make fun of him all we want, but I know one thing, Tom. When Peyton Manning says something, it's because he believes it. And Peyton Manning is super excited that Zach Wilson is here, so much so that he reached out to Broncos PR, got his number, welcomed him to the city, went on a local radio show. You can read about it here at milehighhuddle.com, and had a ringing endorsement of Zach Wilson. Do you buy what Peyton Manning sees in Zach Wilson?
Well, I mean, Peyton Manning knows the game of football way more than I know. He knows quarterbacks. So, I mean, from what I took was from that comment, maybe I missed some of it, was a change of scenery is what he needed. And having a bunch of different offensive coordinators for a young quarterback doesn't bode well. So I get what he's saying. I didn't take it as a ringing endorsement. Maybe I missed something there. But what he said was true. Like, you get a young guy who gets bounced around from different offensive coordinators, can't get into a rhythm. And, then maybe a change of scenery will help. The problem I have is there was nothing in those 3 seasons that showed me that he had that. I mean, yeah, he had potential before the draft, but once he got in the NFL, I haven't seen anything that I was like, oh yeah, there's some potential there. They just need to put him in the right scenery. At this point, if he was going to ascend quickly, he should have shown me something in the last couple of years to show that, and I didn't see it. So Peyton Manning knows more than I do. I'm just not. I'm going to cross my fingers and hope it's great, but I have my doubts.
I thought it was interesting that Peyton Manning said that specifically about the offensive coordinators when I think about who that was last year. Nathaniel Hackett. All right. Like Peyton got a bird's eye view of Nathaniel Hackett here in Denver and what his offense looks like. And it's not good. Now, Zach Wilson has done himself 0 favors to start his NFL career. I mean, you go from being the number 2 overall pick out of BYU to a guy that nobody really wants, and you're just giving away so quick and so fast. I mean, Trey Lance thought it was a bad look for Zach Wilson. It's just, you can't make a lot about it. I mean, I hope it works out. We'll see. It's certainly an interesting Sean Payton wrinkle that we will have to look out for. David Yonkin coming in. David Yonkin.
Oh, go ahead.
Are you guys going live draft night? You guys, Mile High Huddle will be live draft night. Stay tuned. We will have coverage on these airwaves and over at milehighhuddle.com. I assure you, David, we've got your back. No, real quick on Zach Wilson, man. I'm curious because it's cheap, right? You split his contract. That $5 million split up between you and the Jets. It was a swap of late round picks. Am I excited? Not really. Am I curious? Why not?
He did come into Mile High City and beat the Broncos last year, or where was it in New York? I can't remember now, but he did beat the Broncos. They were 1-4 or 1-3. Came in and So, and I will say this: for all of Nathaniel Hackett's flaws, I can't stand him as a head coach. One of the worst. Zach Wilson actually had the best season of his career under Nathaniel Hackett. So there are some smidgens of hope in there, but it was pretty awful to watch Zach Wilson come in with the 1-3 Jets and smack the Broncos around.
Well, and what's so funny about it is we were talking before the show, like I had just tweeted out there, like making fun of myself. Which quarterback did I miss on really bad? Well, one of them was Zach Wilson. And it's like 24 hours later, bam, he's a new Denver Bronco. James Moss coming in here with $5 love. Thank you, James. I think quarterback is still on the board for the Broncos. My guess is they didn't see anyone worth taking in the 6th round, and Zach Wilson does have some upside, I think.
He's got upside. He has potential. There's a slew of draft busts that had plenty of potential. Right now, he is a draft bust. Can turn it around, no doubt. I mean, we've seen it. It's more of an anomaly where you see someone who kind of bounced around the league and then finally got in the right situation and became a pretty good quarterback. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is Rich Gannon comes to mind, but that's few and far between. So It is a risk, but it's a low risk. I get it. I just didn't see the reason for it, right? I mean, like I said earlier, why not pair a rookie quarterback who you hope has something to bring to the table? We've seen Zach Wilson. He's failed so far. Bring in a rookie quarterback, pair him with a mentor type quarterback, not 3 other quarterbacks who are fighting for the same job with very little experience being a professional quarterback in this league. That's the only thing that I get it. But I mean, they moved down in the 7th, from the 6th to the 7th round. It is cheap. I get it. It's fine, but I just don't see the need for it.
Well, I like where James is going here with, well, maybe the Broncos don't like any of the late rounders, so they figured, well, Zach Wilson, he's around the age of some of these cats when you look at it, specifically in the first round. These starting 5 quarterbacks that we think are going to go in the first at least. There are reaches every year, and when you look at the age, Zach Wilson, he's still a young pup, right? Yep. It'll be interesting to see his mental toughness because I didn't think he handled himself very well in New York. And James is saying the same thing. To be fair, remember, it's the Jets, Jets.
That's true.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's tough when he wasn't the most mature of quarterbacks there Sean Payton is going to get after a guy. He doesn't mind dog cussing him on national primetime TV, and he doesn't give a gee whiz what anyone has to say. It'll be curious, man. James, I hope you're right. I hope quarterback is not off the board. Tom, I have to tell you, if Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos do not draft a first-round quarterback tomorrow night, I am going to be very disappointed, borderline irate. I may just turn on Sean. Would that be an overreaction?
Maybe. I guess we have to see how it plays out, right? If one was in reach and they didn't go get him, I think it's disappointed. But like I've been saying, it could be a situation where they just couldn't put a package together to go get him. They went 1, 2, 3, and then quickly right after, and there just was no way for them to go get it. I understand that. And then if they reach for one after that, that's where the disappointment for me comes in, right? Like, say that they're like, oh, we didn't get the 2 guys we wanted, so we're going to grab one that we could probably get much later because we're desperate. Now that's when it starts to get skeptical. If they're sitting at 12 and there's some almost, blue chip players sitting there and they grab a quarterback that could be had much later, that's when I would be pretty skeptical of how this draft process is working.
Well, let's get specific. How about a Bo Nix? I think that scenario is very realistic. It continues to be floated out there. Now, to be fair, Tom, every scenario is being thrown out there except Caleb Williams. I haven't seen Broncos and Caleb Williams headlines or anything like that. So let's pump those brakes, right? But to be fair, looking at the other quarterbacks, right? You've heard about the Drake May connection. You've heard about the JJ McCarthy, some Jaden Daniels rumblings, calling Sean Payton the guru. You also, it's the season of lies, right? How do you judge it? Then I have this nagging suspicion, and that suspicion's name is Bo Nix. People that I trust, people that I've worked with, have this overwhelming opinion that Bo Nix is most ready for the Sean Payton offense. Now, he is not my favorite quarterback prospect in the first round, but if it's at 12 or if it's via a trade back and you can get more, I'd be very curious. I'd be very happy that they landed a first-round quarterback in Bo Nix. He's not my first, second, or even third choice, but you know what? I'd rather have him over Michael Penix Jr.
Yeah, I mean, it would be, for me, would be a situation if they were able to trade back and still land Bo Nix, if they got a couple things out of it. But to take him at 12 seems early. And I know a lot of people like Bo Nix, and I really can't say too much about him other than what I've been saying. Like, he doesn't seem completely ready to step in, and I've only watched a few of those Oregon games, but being told what the coverage is makes me think, all right, he's got some learning to do. Now he could be a perfect fit. I don't know. I would rather have one of those blue chippers at, the top 4 than settle for a Bo Nix at 12. It just seems like it's settling, but again, it could work out. Bo Nix could be a great quarterback. I have no idea. I mean, like I tweeted out, in the top 10, 4 quarterbacks go. One of them is going to be a stud. 2 of them are going to be okay starters, and one's going to be a bust. Which ones are they? I don't know.
Oh, that is the anxiety that is the NFL draft, folks. And Cody Dubbs coming in here real quick, giving everyone a friendly reminder, warning, heads up. Everybody remember, keep your moms at home. Zach Wilson is in town, and I've already seen some really good memes, right? And some of the jerseys that are out there being made right now for Zach Wilson. I mean, it's creative. It is what it is. I don't know. You can't have a distraction, though, right? Sean Payton just got rid of a distraction. His name was Russell Wilson. Zach Wilson better come in here and mind his P's and Q's. He better come in here, start getting into the playbook now, because Sean is absolutely going to drill you, and he's going to embarrass you in front of the entire team. And then what happens? Let's say, here's another scenario we're not fully considering. What if Zach Wilson doesn't make it through the offseason program? What if he doesn't make it through training camp? You think Sean Payton has allegiance to Zach Wilson just because he traded late round picks, Tom? No, I think this is something we could absolutely see, where if Zach Wilson doesn't put out, he doesn't prepare, he's not a true Denver Bronco in Sean Payton's image, he's going to find himself out.
I can see all 3 of the quarterbacks that are currently on the roster not being on the roster when it comes down to it. I mean, really,
not Jarrett Stidham. Sean loves Jarrett Stidham. He does, Tom. Yeah, I mean, I don't
Jarrett
get it.
Stidham's fairly
I don't
safe.
get it, but he loves Jarrett Stidham. I'm not saying he loves Jarrett Stidham enough to, I think, ride with him. No pun intended here in 2024. But look, Sean just had to have this guy. He talks about wanting him in the draft too. I don't get it either, Tom. But DiNucci and Wilson are definitely on the outside looking in.
For sure. Yeah, and again, like I said before, if they do somehow find their way into a first-round quarterback, I think they're going to make another move to bring in a veteran backup and get rid of the young guys, right? Like, to me, it makes sense to have somebody.
Ryan Tannehill?
I would take Ryan Tannehill as a backup quarterback who could start in if needed. I know he's not great, but he's a leader. He's helped mentor other players from what I've read. As long as he's too expensive, to have someone like that, a veteran presence who can help. And I think that's important. I still go back to Paxton Lynch.
Who's he mentored? Ryan Tannehill. Who's he mentored? Ryan Tannehill.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about the players that he's played with have talked about his leadership and helping them and stuff, not necessarily mentoring a quarterback. Well, who else? I mean, I don't think Zach Wilson's going to do that. I don't think Jarrett Stidham's going to do that.
I think I would rather go with Jarrett Stidham because he's already under contract than having a 1 year, $5 million. Because here's at the end of the day, I think we both agree. What's the difference between Jarrett Stidham and Ryan Tannehill? We both know that they're not it.
I mean, experience, really knowing how the professional game really works, knowing how to handle everything. I'm not a big Tannehill fan. I don't want people to think that I'm like pining away for Tannehill to be signed.
He wants Ryan Tannehill. You heard it here on MHI.
I'm just saying, pair him with a rookie who you want to be the face of the franchise. Give him that extra bit of information that he can glean to help him become a better quarterback. Tannehill's the only one left. I mean, if there was another backup that I could think of out there who was of that, kind of ilk, I would be calling for that person's name. They're kind of all gone right now. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, it's tough, man. You're exactly right. I mean, you could see a drastic change in the quarterback room. And we're reacting to Zach Wilson, Peyton Manning's ringing endorsement of Zach Wilson and his new career renaissance start here in the Mile High City. You can read about that over at milehighhuddle.com. We're talking first-round quarterbacks. We're keeping this discussion going because in 24 hours, we should have a better idea of what the Broncos could be looking at. Will it be a first-round quarterback? I hope so. Doesn't necessarily mean that'll be the case. Now, it's the season of lies for a reason. You hear what Diana Rossini putting out there today. Shocker, the Broncos could deal Pat Surtain in a move to try to leapfrog everybody. He's all the Broncos have. We know. Respectfully, we know all these national reporters who are very good at their job, very plugged in, much more so than I ever will be. We know what we have with the Denver Broncos, and it's not a lot. Tom, we were talking about this before the show started, and it makes me think when you start looking at some of these draft picks, are they worth it to move up? Are they worth it to move down? Time will only tell. So we're going to start a little bit later in the show. Hang on for a minute. I want to hear everybody's favorite draft day picks and the worst draft day nightmares. Maybe the second half of our show, because did a little homework, Tom, and I've got a list. I've got a list of some guys that I'd be curious to get your takes on.
Yeah, and I promised out on Twitter that I would give you my worst Broncos draft miss or whatever of all time. Back from a long time ago. I've been a viewer and an appreciator of the draft since the 80s. So I go way back for this one.
Way back. We're going into the Mel Kiper time machine. Yes. Way back. The godfather of the draft. James coming back in. Appreciate you, James Moss, $10 super. If we are not in love with any of the quarterbacks, why not go for a top defensive player like a corner or an edge? Let's give our defense some players. Maybe we won't score points, but we can't give up 70 again. James, 70. That hurts.
That's embarrassing.
Man, that feels like 10 years ago, Tom. It wasn't that long ago. It just started the season last year. I mean, it's miserable. James, I hear what you're saying. There are so many holes. We've been very critical of Vance Joseph's defense. We've been very critical of Sean Payton hiring Vance Joseph, keeping Vance Joseph. Here's why that's not going to happen, James. Sean Payton is the offensive play caller. He is going into the first round full steam ahead with a quarterback on his mind. We were talking before the show started, and I did tell Thomas I'm nervous and I'm scared. There's this nagging suspicion in my mind that what if the Broncos selected a defensive player? I would lose my mind over that. This is not the time to do it. Not with Sean Payton.
What about a situation where there's a stud edge rusher there and the quarterbacks have already been taken and they trade back to get someone that
Bo Nix, maybe a Bo Nix, pick up an edge rusher and maybe a Bo Nix.
For me, if they're sitting there at 12 and there's an edge rusher or an interior pass rusher that looks like a sure deal. Now there's no sure deals. I get it, but you need that help. You need that pass rush help. Do you take it? Or do you say, you know what? We need a quarterback so bad, we're just going to trade back and grab one of these guys. I don't know, man. I'm with James here. If those quarterbacks are gone and you see a stud edge rusher there, I think you take a shot at it. They need these, like I said, they need some impact players. They do not have any. They have one on their entire team. They need some.
Dude, that is so bad when you say it, but it's true. They have one, and that one is their only trade capital.
Exactly.
You got Cortland Sutton, who might be a little bit of icing on the cake with a couple first rounders. I mean, it's going to be expensive. We've talked about it. We've been bracing ourselves for this potential scenario because, Tom, we talked about this last week. The last great pass rusher that the Broncos had was Von Miller.
Yep.
Bradley Chubb was always hurt. Right. I mean, ultimately, it's in a weird twist of fate, helped to get Sean Payton here with that capital from Miami that was sent to New Orleans. But man, there are so many holes. James is right. You're right. It's got to start with the QB, though. If not now with the quarterback, then when? Are you going to wait for Shedeur? We just going to hitch our wagon to that? I don't think so. No. I mean, I think with the Dak Prescott thing, I see it out there on social media. What, we're on Dak watch? No, I'm not on Dak watch. Trust me. I watch him in the playoffs, and it ain't pretty. David Yonka coming in here, 199 Super. Hey, Tom, how's the move going? I hope very well.
Well, moving is always tough, man. Moving's terrible. Still trying to, get a house and all of that. So it's done. I mean, we're moved, but still trying to finish that final few steps. So thank you for asking. I don't want to move again for at least 10 years, Luke and David. I don't. I mean, it's 10 years now. I'm not moving again. I moved too many times over the last, 6, 7, 8 years. I'm not doing it again for a while.
Well, we don't see you coming down MHI live from a cardboard box. I mean, surely things are going a little bit all right. I mean, I haven't heard any cars honking. I haven't seen any panhandling or any of that. But no, David, we appreciate that, man. You guys are so kind. Broncos country, this is MHI. He is Thomas Hall. I am Luke Patterson. If you'd like to reach out to Tom, please do so on X at Thomas Hall NFL. Yours truly at Luke Patterson LP. We are talking final draft preview before the 2024 first round opens tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Mountain. Tom, what will you be doing for the NFL draft? Do you have any superstitions? Do you have any traditions? Do you like to watch it on one channel versus the other? What does draft day look like for Thomas Hall 24 hours from now? It's
funny because draft day used to be like huge for me. I would prepare for several weeks before. I would get like a Lindy's or a Street and Smith's, and I'd be like riding in the, who I thought was going to be. In fact, in 2008, like I was so into it. I think in that draft with Ryan Clady, I think I picked 4 or 5 of the actual players that Shanahan picked that year. But I just been so busy this year. I don't know what it's going to look like. And I think it's kind of fun. Like I'm going to go into it being like more
optimistic.
Refreshed. Like, just like whatever happens. And then I can complain about it later or be happy about it, whichever I want. So I'm kind of excited, but I'll definitely be clued into it. Probably, watching ESPN is where I usually watch it. So, no superstitions, no draft day, rituals or anything. So How about you?
So you'll catch me chewing on my fingernails, and then I don't know if I'll be writing tomorrow night or what. But like you, man, this is the first year I haven't hit the road. I haven't been scouting per se at the Shrine, the Senior, so I feel a little out of touch. But I am leaning on those here at MHH and those that I trust in the scouting community. So it makes me optimistic as well. Now, feeling pretty good about the first round. And I know that what I want is a first round quarterback.
Yeah.
But Tom, in this life, you don't always get what you want, as the good song goes. I want Jaden Daniels, and I know that's a big ask. That's a very big ask, but Sean Payton has been known to ask for some big things. He's been known to make some bold moves. JJ McCarthy, another quarterback that I like. Doesn't mean it'll work. No, it's dirty little word in the NFL. The dirty little secret. It's about fit. Yeah. Does this quarterback and this coach, do they fit each other? Does this team, this franchise, this owner, do they fit with this quarterback? I mean, so many times you wonder, coulda, shoulda, woulda with these different quarterback prospects. Tomorrow, we're going to find out. And James coming back in again. Thank you so much, James. We should have more money next year to build with the cap.
Yeah. And I think they've made moves this year that kind of suggest that they're going to rely a lot more on free agency next year. They have, they've tried to move as much of that Russell Wilson dead cap into this year. They haven't went out and made any real big signings. A lot of them are more depth signings. I think they're prepared to try and trade some of those draft picks to move up with some of the signings and then go out next year with that extra money and try and fill in the roster with a few good starters. Hopefully that's what it feels like, the way the moves have been made this year. So
yeah. We'll and I wrote up the owners meetings where Greg Penner talked about just as much, Tom, where he said, last year we spent a lot, it was a very busy free agency in 2023. Naturally, the next year you kind of expect a quieter offseason, not as lucrative deals. You saw what it took to get underneath the cap and get the Broncos where they're currently at, which is in a healthy position, a lot healthier than we thought they would be. And then it's kind of odd, right? When you see Justin Simmons and what happened to the safety market out there, and he's still looking for a home, and it's crazy. This is the NFL, baby. Dennis Woods coming in here, $2 super. I still think that the Broncos will move up to 4 or 5 for a quarterback. Dennis, that's right, man. That's the sweet spot, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't curious what New England's thinking at 3. Right? I mean, if their quarterback isn't there, if Jaden Daniels isn't there, I think if JJ McCarthy isn't there, would they potentially be interested in trading the number 3 spot? I've wrote some articles on it, right? The season of lies, whatever we want to put into it, but 3, 4, or 5, sign me up for any of them, Dennis, and I'm a happy camper because it means Sean Payton gets his guy.
And that's the thing, like, depending on how the first 3 picks kind of go, it can really change the face of the draft, because I think there are teams that are high on some of those first 3 and not on some, like it feels like some teams are really high on Drake May and JJ McCarthy or Jaden Daniels, but not, like it feels like there's a lot of questions in there. So you're right. If the Pats, say that for some reason those first 2 go that they wanted and they don't want the others, right, are they in play? I don't know. I mean, you never know. Or do they say, screw it, and we draft a different position, even though they need quarterback? Maybe that, like, we didn't like the ones that's there, so we just draft whoever in it. You never know. I mean, hopefully the football gods smile tomorrow on the Broncos and things go their way.
Well, Phil's coming in, man. No way New England doesn't take a quarterback, in my opinion. I don't know, man. Defensive coach, right? I mean, I know every rookie head coach, their best friend is a first-round quarterback because it gets them that extra year, right? Maybe. But I don't know, man. I think New England, what does life look like post Bill Belichick? It should be. If you're New England, I mean, and you're really trying to sell this post life, we're without Tommy, we're without Bill, well, do it with a first-round quarterback. It's just, I don't know who it's going to be. I think that they really like JJ McCarthy, they being the Patriots a lot. I have to believe in my bones they love Jaden Daniels. Who doesn't? Who doesn't? If and raise your hand if you don't, because there are certain quarterbacks I don't like, and sometimes it's just the eye test, right? I'm not a big Drake May guy. Now, would I be curious if he was drafted? You bet. I would be satisfied with that. But there one quarterback I just want to stay away from, and Obviously, Caleb Williams. I would never draft that man. But Michael Penix Jr., man, I am out on Michael Penix Jr. I know he had a top 30 visit right here with the Broncos a month ago. But the injuries, man, the inconsistencies, some of the work ethic concerns. I would stay away from a Michael Penix Jr. Tom, is there a quarterback you would stay away from 100%? Caleb Williams is out of the conversation.
Well, I mean, not really.
No,
depending on where they draft. Like, I mean, I wouldn't want to draft Penix at 12, but say they get him in the 3rd round. All right, take a flyer on him, whatever.
He's not going to go to the
to
third,
me, it all
he?
depends on where it happens, right? Like, if it's a super big reach, no. But if it happens that he falls and they grab him, and you never know. I guess it just depends. My only problem is I have not been able to watch a lot of film. So this draft cycle, I've been busy. I can't do it. So I can't really say why I would or wouldn't like them. I've seen them play games, college games, but I haven't went back and watched. So I'm kind of going from what I saw when I watched the games. And Penix has some things to like. He really does. But you're right. The injury history for me is troublesome. I think he's older too, right? He's like going to be 24 in this draft. That always scares me a little bit too. When older players get drafted, they tend to not work out. So yeah, there's things not to like, but just at 12, I would be very upset if they took Penix at 12.
Yeah, I don't see it with the injury history, man. That just doesn't do it for me. But what does is this name. I'm going to pull an Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, here's a name I haven't heard in a very long time. Maurice Clarett is on my notes, Kathy. I was thinking about the former Ohio State running back that was drafted by Mike Shanahan in round 3 back in 2005, number 101 overall. Tom, what did you make of Maurice Clarett on draft day? I was stoked, man, because you have Mike Shanahan with the legendary reputation of, taking chicken, and turning it into chicken salad with those fantastic offensive lines and just his reputation for running backs. I was pumped. I was in on Maurice Clarett.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it was interesting because I think Bobby Turner was like keeping really close tabs on him through the draft. Like they leading up to the draft, they really liked him. And the reason why they took him in the 3rd round is because at the end of the 3rd round, because they knew another team, and it might've been the Cowboys. I can't remember. We're really going to nab him in the 4th. So
I can see it being Dallas. That would make sense.
So they grabbed him quickly. That whole scenario was strange to begin with. I mean, he looked like a really good fit for that zone blocking scheme with the Broncos. He just didn't have it where it counted, the desire to go out and win that job. And he had other problems. So yeah, that's one of those busts that I kind of read off because it was a 3rd round bust. But yeah, he didn't make it. But they invested a lot of time in him leading up to the draft.
Man, that's when I was growing up watching college ball, and it was a special time, right? The Ohio State, the U, right? Miami, that famous Hurricane program that produced so many NFL legends, especially here in Broncos country. When you think about some of them, with DJ Williams, it comes to mind right away. He had a really good career for the Broncos, but yeah, Maurice Clarett, man. I was also thinking about Jarvis Moss.
Yep.
Yeah, speaking of Mike Shanahan, right? Mike hit on a ton of drafts, right? He's got Pro Football Hall of Famers that he hit on when you think about it. But when you think about Jarvis Moss coming out of Florida, man, and what was he? He was the number 1 pick, number 17. Yeah, 2007, man. Jarvis Moss. That one to me was one of the biggest Broncos busts at his position.
The funny thing is Mike Shanahan could not get the pass rushing, the edge rushers right. Jarvis Moss, Paul Toviesi, who nobody remembers, are a 2nd round draft choice. And in fact, I think they traded up to get him, never even made it through camp because of injuries. He had a degenerative knee injury. They drafted him, total bust. He could not get that edge rushing position right.
He got 2 technically right at the D end with Trevor Price and Elvis Dumerville.
Well, Trevor Price started out as a defensive tackle, and I think he should have stayed there because he's an incredible interior pass rusher. They moved him to defensive end out of need, and he did good, but he was originally defensive tackle. Elvis Duvermill, awesome player, fax machine, hiccup. He did get that right, but that was like a flyer that they took on a 4th rounder. I mean, I'm talking about like early rounds. He just could not get it right. That and wide receiver in the early rounds, he just could not get it right. Marcus Nash, terrible pick. And then the other one he struggled with too for a while was cornerback, taking Willie Middlebrooks in the first round. Man, there was some, Shanahan missed on some early rounders. He hit on some too. Al Wilson, great player. John Mobley, great player. I mean, Trevor Price, probably, I mean, if you can, all things considered, might have been the best interior pass rusher that the Broncos had in the last 30 some years, but he missed on some. But mine goes my biggest bust goes way back to the Dan Reeves days. Teddy Gregory was, in my mind, the biggest draft bust, just because they didn't even go like talk to him. They didn't even interview him. They drafted him on reputation alone. And when he arrived in Denver, Dan Reeves was like, I'm taller than he is. What? I mean, like, he's like surprised. Like, the guy is like small, and he had steroid history. He had injury history. They didn't even look into it. They just drafted him. Ended up, that was it. Never played a down for the Broncos, but he did get 1 sack against John Elway when he went to the Saints. So he played for a little while and sacked John Elway. So.
Here's another name I was just thinking of when you were talking about wide receivers, and Eric Smith coming in here with this one. You guys remember a little guy named, not little guy, but a name named Ashley Lilly, random guy that came to mind out of the University of Hawaii. Absolutely. I remember Ashley Lilly, man. That was I don't remember where he was drafted. Was he a premium round draft pick, Tom?
He was a 1st round draft choice. Wow. But you know what the funny thing is? If you look up Ashley Lilly or you look up career receiving leaders and you look down the list, Ashley Lilly almost has as many. It's like neck and neck with Eric Decker for receiving yards. Isn't that strange? Like, we think of Eric Decker, 3rd round. He was, he caught all these balls and he had a lot of yards. Ashley Lilly almost had the same amount of yards for a Denver Broncos career as Eric Decker.
Number 19 coming out in 2002. Early. Scott cleaning that one up for it. Was he the best wide receiver that Mike Shanahan selected? I mean, he did have.
I don't know why he was desperate for a wide receiver for some reason. And man, that draft, him taking Ashley Lilly and others that were after that would have filled better roles. I don't know, man. That was a tough one.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. This, when you go back and you look at some of these players, man, I even think, a player that we'll never know what could have been with the Denver Broncos, but I grew up, I played with his little brother, I played with his cousin. How about Brandon Marshall, the wide receiver in 2006, 4th round pick, number 119. I mean, he's a part of Broncos history. Him and Jay Cutler, we never know what could have been with those guys. We had some flashes. Right. And I remember where I was when Jay Cutler was drafted out of Vanderbilt, too. I was very excited, thinking that Mike Shanahan found this diamond in the rough. And little did I know, Tom, what was going to be Jay Cutler and his NFL career. It's just it's a trip, man. When you look back at some of these quarterbacks, some of these players, some of these coaches, and what has ultimately become Broncos history. It's a part of the team. It's part of the fan base.
And I'll tell you, Brandon Marshall, man, he is, you look at the three seasons of his when he was in Denver Broncos uniform, one of the best 3-season stretch of any wide receiver that's ever played for the Denver Broncos. I mean, he was a head case, obviously, he did some odd stuff, he kind of made his way out of Denver because he wasn't happy. But man, Brandon Marshall was an excellent wide receiver on the football field.
Incredible. He was an animal. Yeah. He was, I mean, like, he was an absolute beast. I think that's his Twitter handle or something like that. And what's interesting, Tom, is life post Brandon Marshall, eventually got Demaryius Thomas here, if memory serves, right? Demaryius Thomas drafted in 2010, number 2022 or number 22 overall, part of that Tim Tebow draft, right? That we'll never forget. But Demaryius had big shoes to fill right away, right? When he comes in with Josh McDaniels after Josh McDaniels just traded away Brandon Marshall and Jay Cutler. And rest in peace, Demaryius Thomas, man. Not only one of Broncos country's favorites, but maybe a Ring of Famer one day, and a guy that continues to live on in our hearts.
Yeah. And, it's funny because Josh McDaniels completely destroyed the Broncos, and his draft, not the Demaryius Thomas, Eric Decker draft, but the other draft was awful, a terrible draft. But he did draft a couple pretty solid players, DT being one of them, man. He ended up being a very good pick. So yeah, there's a couple guys that Josh McDaniels drafted that were pivotal in that success when Peyton Manning took the helm as quarterback.
Well, and what's interesting when you're talking about passing of the torch, whether that be from Brandon Marshall to Demaryius Thomas or trying to fill those shoes, Cortland Sutton was supposed to be the next Demaryius Thomas. Now, Cortland Sutton has had two different players. I get it, two different men. But Cortland Sutton has had so much praise and an affinity for Demaryius Thomas and the respect that he has shown DT and his memory, but he's not DT. I hate to say it. He had a fantastic 2023, but he hasn't been as dominant as Demaryius Thomas was at times. I know the Peyton Manning effect has a lot to do with that, right? I mean, Peyton Manning transcended the players that he played with. Look at some of these wide receivers he played with in Indianapolis. Look at the wideouts he played with in Denver. You keep talking about Eric Decker. I mean, these names go on and on. And Greg Smith coming in here. What's up, Greg? Phil McLaughlin, biggest hit for me, 1967, 6th overall. The franchise, rest in peace, Mr. Floyd Little.
Yeah.
It's said that Floyd Little saved the Broncos.
He did. He really did, because they were on the verge of selling the team. He was the first round draft choice to sign with the Broncos. Everyone else that they drafted went on to have Hall of Fame careers. Some of them did with the NFL. He was the first one to do it. And they went door to door, and he was one of them that went door to door crowdfunding in order to raise money to expand the stadium in order to stay in Denver. So that's why he is nicknamed the franchise. Great player, great story for Floyd Little there. But yeah, definitely the franchise is a great nickname for him.
Boom, Floyd Little, rest in peace. And our guy Clayton coming in here. Guys, smash that like button and share on all platforms if you have not done so already. Head on over to X, follow Tom at Thomas Hall NFL, yours truly at Luke Patterson LP. Head on over to milehighhuddle.com. You can read a couple of Chad's latest. One is suggesting that the Broncos have done their homework and really like Bo Nix. Another, Peyton Manning and his ringing endorsement of Zach Wilson. That's right. In case you missed it, the Broncos released some new jerseys, and on the same day, they got a new quarterback. Zach Wilson was dealt in an exchange of late-round draft picks. The Denver Broncos have themselves a new quarterback. I will remain emphatic for now that does not mean, just because Zach Wilson is here, that Sean Payton is out on a first-round quarterback. Sean Payton is not a patient man. Sean Payton, I think, is bold. He's unapologetically himself, and I think he's willing to risk it all. He's at the poker table playing with the Broncos ownership's money, and he's saying, baby, let's get in here and let's make some deals. I have to believe that in my heart, Tom. I got to believe.
Yeah, I think he's going to try and work the phones to move up. I just think he is. I'm just wondering if he has the firepower to do it without really gutting the most important pieces of the team that we have right now on the roster, right? So
one piece, Pat Surtain.
Yeah, Pat Surtain. I mean, maybe he's not willing to do that, but I guarantee you he is trying to move up. Zach Wilson does not change. If Zach Wilson changes the draft strategy, then we've got to question who's running the show, because that should not have any influence on what they want to do on draft day whatsoever.
Well, and it makes me wonder, Tom, when you're saying Sean should be working those phones, what's George doing during that? Because George, like, just sitting there in the chair, like, yes, Sean, no, Sean, Right away, Sean. I mean, like, Sean's on the phone maneuvering these deals. He's not like he's saying, George, you know what he's doing? George is ringing him up. So it's Sean. You've got the Cardinals on line 3. And then Sean takes the phone call. I mean, really, what's the draft room look like? Let us know in the chat, Broncos country. Jordan Tatum coming in. Thank you, Jordan, for the support and the love. Would you rather Michael Penix, guaranteed to stay healthy, drafted at number 12, or Penix drafted later, 22 or the second round, but uncertainty about health? I would rather not at all. Jordan, I'm not being facetious. I don't like Michael Penix. I've seen enough of him for me to just say I'd rather pass. There have been players in this league with injuries that have went on to have long, illustrious careers. I don't foresee that in his future. I really don't want Michael Penix. If you had to pin me down, though, Jordan, take him in the second round. I don't think he'll be there in the second round. I don't think Bo Nix is going to be there in the second round. Does that mean that they should have a first or second round grade? No, they're two entirely different things. We see quarterbacks get reached for every single year. It might happen in a record fashion tomorrow night. What happens if teams all of a sudden at the end of the first are trading up to get Spencer Rattler, Tom? I mean, crazier things have happened, right? True. Like you're going to see teams reach, James. Yeah. Jordan, pardon me.
I would take, for me, if guaranteed health was there, I would take him at 12 because injuries are the biggest contributor for people being a bust, so to speak, in the draft. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, you can take a surefire pick that's supposed to be wonderful, gets hurt and never plays as well again and is out of the league. Guaranteed health, I would take that every time. And so for me, I would, if he's at 12, guaranteed to be healthy, I would take him then and forget about later. And with the health uncertainties, just because, I mean, if you look at all these, you look at the draft busts, it's either they don't have the desire or they have injuries because they go through all the process to see that these cats can play football or they're athletic or whatever. And those are like the two things that they can't ever judge. They don't know for sure if someone's going to be injured or if someone's not going to have the desire. And I'd take a healthy, guaranteed healthy any day of the week.
What's a guarantee in the NFL other than a signing bonus? I love where Jordan going, man, because this is the last time we can have this conversation. So, Jordan, I salute you for it, man. It's a good question. It's a brave question, right? Because it's a big what-if scenario. That's all we're talking about with the draft. Until it happens, everything we talk about is a what-if scenario. That's what makes it fun. But I am ready. I'm ready to see who the Broncos pick. I'm ready to see what Sean Payton does. I mean, all pressure is on Sean Payton. He can't say that he didn't have a chance to have it his way. Come hell or high water, it is what it is. Sean's in charge. Let's see what he does. Yeah. And Michaela Israel coming in with some love, a $3 super. Thank you so much. Hopefully you and Cooper have a fun NFL draft eve. I know some of my friends, they like to get together. They like to have a few cold pops, and the night can go one of two ways. Either they're very excited for their draft pick and we're going to NFL.com and we're trying to place a jersey order, or we're very disappointed and we're very upset with our draft pick and we end up going home because we have to work early on Friday morning. Tom, if you had to gamble on it, would you say that the Broncos draft a first-round quarterback or another position? I'm going to pin you down on this one. What do they do tomorrow night?
They are going quarterback. Absolutely. First-round quarterback.
Yes. All right, Tom. If they don't, it's on you. It's on Thomas Hall, everybody, at Thomas Hall NFL on X. They've got to go quarterback, right? Yeah. And here's the thing, man. I know you well enough. I know why you're saying it, right? It's Sean Payton. He's never traded back in the first round. He has to pick a quarterback. If not now, then when. It's the same show that you and I have had all offseason debating what the Broncos should do. There are pros and cons to every move. But, man, Tom, you gave me goosebumps. Lawrence Rivera, what's up, Larry, coming in here. Stars for the Rhinestone Cowboy.
Who's the Rhinestone Cowboy?
I think that's you, baby. I think that's you. You're the real cow. You grew up on
a real cowboy. I grew up on a ranch, man. I'm a real cowboy. I'm not a Rhinestone Cowboy. But I love the song, man. I love the song and the movie too. I know people are going to probably give me crap, but I really enjoyed the movie Rhinestone with Sylvester Stallone and Dolly Parton. Go watch it. It's probably terrible now, but when I was younger, I liked it. It was called Rhinestone.
That is great, dude. Lawrence is always coming here. He's so damn ornery, Lawrence. Lawrence, let us know in Broncos country, what do you guys like to do for the NFL draft? Because it's usually work for us, right, Tom? So it's a lot of sitting by the computer, sitting by the TV, having the radio on, writing, tweeting, covering at podcasting, doing absolutely everything that we do here at milehighhuddle.com. But I can't remember the last time I watched the draft with somebody. Maybe my girls were in the room with me when Drew Lock and Dalton Reisner were drafted in that draft. I was pumped, right? I was thrilled to have, I know, crazy, right? As much as I bagged on Drew Lock, I was thrilled to have Drew Lock. I had a first round grade on Drew Lock. How bad was that? And Dalton Reisner still looking for work, right? It's absolutely crazy. Lawrence coming back in, weighing in on Zach Wilson with his new sparkly jersey. Oh, man, watch out for Zach Wilson in the greater Denver metro area. He's a dog, DOG dog, and he is out there. Keep your mothers at home.
Lock up your mothers, not your daughters.
It's oh man, Zach Wilson coming in here. Zach Wilson doesn't get an introductory press conference, right? When's the first time you get an interview from Zach Wilson as a Denver Bronco? During one of these offseason workouts? I mean, when do you think we're going to see that? That's going to look a little odd, right? To have Zach Wilson in the building.
Yeah, that's going to be strange. I don't know when he's going to get his official interview. Maybe if he lights it up, like everybody's buzzing about him at camp or something, and then they'll jump on the Zach Wilson train. I don't know.
Oh man, it's odd. What'd you make of the jerseys, man? I'll be honest. Maybe I'm a total buzzkill. I was disappointed other than the late 1970s throwback with the orange crush and the powder blue. That should be the home colors for me. Like I would be ready for that. But I think Troy Rank said it best. He's like, look, these uniforms aren't for me. They're for the next generation of fan. And I think Broncos country's been very happy with it. Tom, what'd you make of the new threads?
Well, first of all, I think it's anticlimactic because they've had a losing streak for I don't know how long, right? Like, okay, let's get everybody excited with jerseys. Like, why don't you win some games first? It's like totally different than when they change. I remember when they changed jerseys in '97, completely different feeling. So that kind of jades me from the beginning.
They were in the playoffs the year before, to your point.
Yeah, right? I mean, they were a winning team. They were Super Bowl, Super Bowl favorites, so to speak. Maybe not favorites, but they were in the mix,
in the combo.
Yep. It was and Pat Bowlen even talks about it. If you watch the documentary that they get from Sports Illustrated about their season, he was talking about it like that. They're either going to blame the uniforms on our success or our failure, right? So, but I don't like them only because I feel like they went a step too far. It was like somebody's like, oh, we need to add one more thing, and that ruined it. That little thing on the side, the little lightning bolt, they didn't need that. Why put that in there? Don't, just have it, a straight line stripe. Now, the throwbacks, I love those jerseys.
Oh, I mean, those are great.
Are awesome. It has nothing to do with that. Those are great memories for me, even though the Super Bowls were not great memories in those uniforms. I love them. But yeah, it felt like that somebody just went like a little too far with a couple things. Like, well, I just got to add one more thing what they shouldn't have. And that's where I kind of draw the line. But hey, if they start winning, I don't care what the uniforms look like. I just want to see this team win again. And, I don't care what uniforms they're wearing.
I thought it was interesting with their promotional video that they released with the uniforms with the Bronco, right? And at the very end, you see these two cleats. You know who those cleats are, right? That's your first round rookie quarterback. That's wearing that new jersey, baby. Okay. I'm telling you, that's your first round rookie quarterback. And that's why we haven't seen him revealed yet. Yeah. What sells better jerseys? Not a wide receiver. Sorry. I know Tim Patrick. We love him. Not interior, but not a cornerback. And by the way, Tom, real quick, will Pat Surtain be a Denver Bronco at this time tomorrow night?
Yes.
I disagree. I'm going to say no. Today is the last full day that we will see Pat Surtain as a Denver Bronco because he will be dealt for a deal in order to get a quarterback. Tom, I'm going to ask you a question here. If you had your way and the Broncos could select your favorite quarterback tomorrow night, Who is he?
Oh man. I don't know. I feel like I like JJ McCarthy. I don't know. I just feel like I don't know. I just feel like he's going to be a winner in the league. And I don't know. I can't point to anything specific. For some reason, I feel like he's going to be a winner in the NFL.
I like it. I'm going Jaden Daniels. I've been on the Jaden. I know, pie in the sky, but you know what? If you're daring me to dream, then I'm going to dream big. Jaden Daniels, and then I'll piggyback off of you at JJ McCarthy. Either of those guys would have me super excited, just like KB has me super excited. How about those Nuggets, KB? I know you see them dominating LeBron. Who's your daddy, Nikola Jokic? Is there a project quarterback in this year's draft that you like that no one's talking about? Maybe a more athletic quarterback? I'm not going to say that he's a project quarterback, KB, but he's been connected to the Broncos so much. Keep an eye on Michael Pratt. Yeah. Cecil Lammey came on here when he was out at the Senior Bowl with Scott. He was out there as well. Came on here, said the Broncos have been connected with Michael Pratt. They like Michael Pratt. I would be shocked if we saw Michael Pratt. That means something went wrong in the first round. You're not going to see Zach Wilson, Ben DiNucci, Jarrett Stidham, a first-round quarterback, and Michael Pratt.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Pratt. I don't, but I have not, like I said, I have not been able to invest a lot of time in some of these later round quarterbacks, really digging into them. So I can't really tell you other than I know Pratt's connected with the Broncos, and he's probably maybe a third rounder that has some upside potential.
Has some upside. We're hoping for a lot of upside tomorrow night, Broncos country. Here we go. I am so excited. Stay tuned to Mile High Huddle at Mile High Huddle on X, milehighhuddle.com for all of your news, articles, and draft coverage. Tom, I couldn't be more excited, man. This time next week, we'll be having a totally different conversation next Wednesday night at 6 p.m. on MHI. Holy cow, I can't wait.
Yeah, this could be a very hopeful. The draft brings hope, right? The NFL does a great job with it too. It's like teams like, this is going to be our year. We drafted these guys, and then they're either good or they're bust, or you never know. So the nice thing about the week or two after the NFL draft, there's hope, right? There really is. Like, these guys could be great, and you're not putting your hope in someone like Zach Wilson. It's somebody new that you've never seen play in the NFL. So.
I can't believe it's here, man. The NFL draft is here. It is draft eve. Guys, follow Tom at Thomas Hall NFL on X. Yours truly at Luke Patterson LP. Follow Scott at Scout Kennedy. Follow the pod as well at MHI_pod. Don't forget the mothership at Mile High Huddle. Broncos country into the 2024 NFL draft. This is the way.
This is the way.